All right, strap in everybody, because today we're diving into some seriously deep waters.
Oh, yeah?
We're tackling Jacques Ellul's The Subversion of Christianity.
Ew.
And let me tell you, you sent in some excerpts that really got the gears turning.
He's not exactly known for pulling punches.
Not at all. It's like he's holding up a mirror to Christian history and saying, see this ideal you started with, and this.
He's really drawing a stark contrast.
Totally. Between the radical counterculture of the early Christians.
The ones getting called anarchists, sort of.
Exactly. Rejecting worldly power. And then
what happens? It's fascinating, isn't it?
It really is, because then you see this institution intertwined with empires, wealth, power.
A far cry from those early days.
It's almost like saying my peace-loving grandma was a pro wrestler. Like,
Yeah.
How did we get from point A to point B?
That's the million-dollar question, and Ellul tackles it head-on.
Blade on us.
And he brings in another fascinating voice. Kierkegaard.
Oh, the melancholy Dane.
Exactly. You know him. Well, Kierkegaard believed that Christianity thrives in opposition.
When it's different.
Right. But when everyone's calling themselves Christian, what does it even mean anymore?
It loses its meaning, doesn't it? It becomes just a label.
Exactly. And that feeds into Ellul's whole idea of desacralization and then this resacralization.
Okay, I gotta admit, those words sound a little intimidating. Can you break it down for us?
Think of early Christianity as this clean break. No more spirits in trees or sacrifices to appease every deity.
No more don't go in the forest kind of spirituality.
Right. God was utterly transcendent, beyond us, definitely beyond our control.
But then humans, we kind of crave that connection with something bigger than ourselves, don't we?
Exactly. And that's where the resacralization comes in.
So what happened?
As Christianity grew, it had to figure out how to integrate people who still yearned for that tangible sensory experience of the divine.
So what'd they do? Did they bring back the trees and the sacrifices?
Not quite. But churches became holy places, rituals took on a life of their own, and those priests we thought were gone. They reappeared.
It's wild how that human need for a physical connection persists, even when you're embracing something that emphasizes the unseen.
It really is. We want to connect with something beyond us.
But there's more to this subversion, right? This isn't just about adding a bit of ritual here and there, is it?
You're right. Ellul then gets into the whole idea of moralism. The focus shifted from grace and love to rules and judgment.
Oof, yeah. Trading the warm hug for a cold, hard rule book.
That's it. And we see it play out in so many ways, like how some of Paul's writings on marriage were taken out of context.
Instead of reflecting Jesus' message of love and equality.
Exactly. They were used to relegate women, which misses the point entirely.
And this legalistic turn, it's something we see crop up again and again throughout history.
All the time. And Ellul argues it reveals something deeper. Our desire to earn our way to God, to be in control through following the rules.
We crave that control, don't we? That sense of secure.
We do. But is that really what faith is about? That's what Ellul wants us to consider.
And just when you think it can't get any wilder, he brings in a curveball.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
He brings up Islam.
Islam.
You don't see that every day in a discussion about Christianity.
That's an interesting twist. Tell me more.
Ellul suggests that despite being seen as adversaries, Islam actually had a huge impact on Christianity's development.
Now, that's something you don't hear every day.
Right. So how did these two seemingly opposed faiths end up shaping each other? Spill the tea.
Well, let's take the concept of holy war, for example.
Holy and war, those two don't seem like they go together, do they?
That's the point. It's completely at odds with the early church's pacifism, turning the other cheek and all that.
Yeah, totally different.
But as Christianity interacted with Islam, which had a much more militant approach, this idea of holy war started taking root in Christendom.
It's like keep your friends close and your theological rivals even closer, because they might just reshape your entire worldview.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How interconnected these belief systems can be.
Absolutely. But Ellul doesn't stop there. He takes it a step further, saying that Christianity's own message might hold the key to understanding its subversion.
What does that mean?
So you're saying that the very thing that makes Christianity unique could also be its Achilles heel. Tell me more, because now my mind is really blown.
It's like this inherent contradiction.
Oh, tell me more about this contradiction.
Ellul says that the core of Christianity, grace, forgiveness, surrendering power.
Yeah, letting go.
It goes against how we humans tend to operate. We're wired differently.
It's true. We want to earn it, control it, figure it all out.
Exactly. Certainty, earning our way, being in control, that's our default setting.
And Christianity is like, nope, let go.
Exactly. Embrace a God you can't manipulate. Love radically in a world obsessed with power. It's a recipe for things getting twisted.
You can see how that would happen.
Absolutely.
And that makes you wonder, right?
What's that?
If there are forces at play beyond just our human mess-ups.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Because Ellul goes full-on biblical thriller with this idea of dominions and powers.
Ah, yes. Dominions and powers. Always a fun one.
It gets intense.
It's a little spooky.
I always picture like shadowy figures in smoky rooms, but I'm guessing Ellul isn't talking about literal demons with pitchforks, is he?
Not quite. It's not about demons with pitchforks. He's talking about those very real forces of evil we see playing out around us every day.
Oh, okay. So less about demonic possession and more about, like, what?
Think systemic greed, manipulative propaganda, that unchecked lust for power that steamrolls over everything.
So stuff that feels very real and present in the world today.
Exactly. He's saying even with good intentions, wanting knowledge, fighting for justice.
Yeah, those sound like good things.
We can still get pulled off course by these dominions and powers.
That's a sobering thought.
It is. Especially for those of us trying to live out our faith.
So what do? Do we just wave the white flag and say, all right, dominions and powers, you win?
I mean, it can feel that way sometimes, right?
It can, yeah.
But Ellul offers a glimmer of hope here. He brings in this idea of eppur si muove. It's
Right.
Italian.
What does it mean?
Yet it moves. It's that realization, even with all these forces working against it, something good and true persists.
Oh, okay, I like the sound of that. Give me some hope here.
It's like this. Despite all the ways Christianity gets twisted, the true spirit of it can't be snuffed out.
It finds a way.
It does. And Ellul points to these moments in history where that's obvious. Movements for social justice, individuals standing up for truth, believers refusing to be silenced.
There are so many stories like that, right? People risking their lives to hide others during persecution, or those who devote themselves to fighting for the vulnerable.
Powerful stuff, right?
It really is. It's like, even in the darkest moments, that's when courage and compassion shine the brightest.
They really do. And sometimes in the most unexpected places.
So it's less about creating this perfect world and more about recognizing those sparks of hope, those moments where love and courage break through.
That's it. Those little glimmers that remind us that change is possible.
I like that.
And get this, Ellul argues that this cycle of subversion, it actually sets the stage for its own counter movement. It's like this back and forth.
So you're telling me that by trying to control the message of Christianity, to subvert it,
It almost guarantees.
it creates the perfect conditions for it to reemerge even stronger.
Exactly. It's like this inherent tension that can't be erased.
That's a pretty mind-blowing thought, even for a deep dive like this.
It makes you think, right?
It really does. So it's like this constant push and pull, this battle between those who want to use faith for their own agenda and those who are trying to reclaim its true meaning.
And that brings us to the heart of it, right?
To what?
Why does this matter? What does this all mean for us today? How do we take this complex history, these powerful forces, and make sense of it all in our own lives?
It's like, it's not enough to just dissect the problem. We have to figure out what to do about it.
Right. Because knowledge without action.
So how do we tap into that counter movement, that spirit of pushing back against the subversion in a way that feels real and relevant today?
It's a question we all have to wrestle with. It's about recognizing the patterns. Remember Ellul said this isn't a one-time thing, right?
It's happening.
This cycle of subversion and then renewal.
So we should be looking for that.
We see it throughout history.
And probably even in our own lives, if we're really honest with ourselves.
Exactly. So it's not about pointing fingers at everyone else.
Yeah, no finger pointing.
It's looking inward.
Asking the tough questions.
Where do we see faith being used to justify power or silence people?
Or just maintain the status quo.
That's where we need to pay attention.
Yeah, those subtle things.
Asking ourselves, is this really what it's all about?
Because that subversion Ellul talks about,
It's often unintentional.
it can be subtle.
It comes from that human desire for control, for certainty.
Which is why I like Ellul's idea of eppur si muove.
The good one?
It gives me hope because even with all the messes and power grabs,
It's messy.
it is. But the true spirit of it all, it finds a way.
It always does.
Like a little weed pushing through the concrete.
I like that.
You can't hold it down.
Those little acts of courage, compassion.
Standing up for what's right, even when it's hard.
Those are the seeds of change.
It's like Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world.
Maybe Ellul would say, be the counter-transgression.
Because we don't have to wait for some big movement.
We can start now.
Live out those values of love and grace.
Right here, right now.
So, To wrap up this deep dive into the subversion of Christianity,
What'd you think?
Ellul is giving us a history lesson, but he's also giving us a push.
Yeah, he wants us to act.
To recognize the patterns.
Because we're part of this story.
And we can choose how we participate.
And find the courage to live out our faith authentically.
Challenge the status quo.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it's unpopular.
Because a Pursi moves.
It moves.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everybody. Keep those questions coming.
Keep seeking.
And